The first encounter, the alien fleet descended onto Earth, massive warships cutting through the atmosphere like jagged blades in the sky. The people below barely noticed the giant ships at first, too busy with their daily lives, unaware of the coming storm. The aliens had made sure to land on a remote military base, far from civilian eyes, choosing a location where their arrival would not immediately cause panic. They thought it would be an easy task: land, destroy, and leave. Earth was a simple planet, their species thought, one that couldn't possibly challenge them. But as the alien warlords set their plan into motion, something unexpected happened. As soon as the soldiers of Earth spotted the alien ships, they didn't flee, they didn't panic. Instead, they stood tall, calm, and ready. The humans moved quickly, efficiently, without fear. The base's lights flickered as the troops assembled, and they didn't look like any ordinary soldiers. There was a quiet intensity in their eyes, a focus that the aliens had never seen before. The alien forces, feeling overconfident in their strength, didn't waste any time. They unleashed a brutal wave of attack. Beams of energy rained down from their ships, weapons powerful enough to reduce entire cities to rubble. The alien troops charged, confident that they would destroy the humans without even breaking a sweat. The humans were weak. They had no chance against such advanced weaponry. But the moment the alien soldiers hit the ground, they encountered something that made them hesitate. The human soldiers didn't fall. They didn't run. They didn't even flinch. They immediately began to fight back with a precision that shocked the invaders. The alien attackers had expected resistance, but this wasn't like anything they had prepared for. The humans seemed to understand every move they made, anticipating their attacks before they even happened. They fought with a fearsome strategy, using the terrain to their advantage, adapting with every second that passed. The alien commander overseeing the attack couldn't believe his eyes. The humans weren't just surviving, they were pushing back. His forces were struggling to keep up with their movements. A simple human soldier, armed with nothing but a rifle, managed to take down one of the most feared alien warriors in seconds, and the alien soldiers watched in horror as they realized they were being outsmarted. For the first time in the warlords' history, they felt the creeping sensation of doubt. How were the humans doing this? The battle raged on, with the alien forces becoming more and more frustrated. Every time they thought they had the upper hand, the humans found a way to turn the tide. It wasn't just about their weapons, it was something deeper. The humans seemed unbreakable, unyielding, determined in a way the aliens couldn't comprehend. As the battle grew more intense, the alien commanders called for reinforcements, but the humans were already 2 steps ahead. They had anticipated every move. They didn't just fight for survival, they fought for victory. Back at the command center, the warlord who had insisted on the attack began to realize just how badly he had underestimated Earth's soldiers. His face hardened as he watched the humans push forward, using everything they had to defend their land. He had thought they were weak, but now in the heat of battle, he was seeing something he had never expected. There was a spirit in the humans that was unlike anything he had encountered before. They weren't afraid. They weren't backing down. They were fighting as though the very future of their species depended on it. And in a way, it did. The humans didn't just fight as soldiers. They fought as families, as communities, as nations united by a single purpose. They fought with everything they had, using every resource, every bit of knowledge, every ounce of strength to protect what was theirs. And it wasn't just the humans who saw this. The alien forces who had expected to crush them were now questioning their own superiority. As the hours passed, the human army began to push the aliens back, step by step, until they reached the outskirts of the alien landing site. The human soldiers, though weary and bloodied, showed no signs of stopping. The aliens, now realizing the full scale of their mistake, began to doubt their once unquestionable confidence. They had assumed that humans were weak, easy prey, but they were learning that they had never faced anything like this before. The alien warlords, looking down at the battlefield from their ships above, exchanged uneasy glances. The time for hesitation was over. They had no choice but to escalate the conflict, but they were no longer sure of the outcome. For the first time, the thought of losing the battle, losing to the humans, crept into their minds. And that, above all else, was what terrified them the most. The humans had turned their fight into something personal. It wasn't just about defeating the aliens, it was about proving that no one, no matter how powerful, could ever take their planet from them. The aliens had underestimated Earth's defenders. And now they would learn what it truly meant to face the wrath of humanity. The fear unleashed, the alien forces had never been so disoriented, never been so shaken. What was supposed to be a simple conquest had turned into a nightmare they couldn't seem to control. Every time they thought they had a clear path, the humans outsmarted them, countering every move with incredible efficiency. The air around the battlefield was thick with tension, and the ground shook with the echoes of relentless gunfire and explosions. The human army, though smaller in number, fought with a precision and purpose that the aliens could not comprehend. They were not like any soldiers the warlords had seen before. The aliens, accustomed to being the apex predators of the galaxy, began to realize they were out of their depth. They had underestimated Earth's soldiers, dismissed them as primitive. But now they saw the humans' greatest strength. It wasn't their weapons, though they were advanced, or their tactics, though they were sharp. It was something far more dangerous, their unrelenting will to fight. The aliens tried to regroup, calling for reinforcements and new strategies, but the humans were already on the move. They adapted to every new alien tactic with eerie precision, never losing their focus, never breaking rank. There was no hesitation, no fear in the eyes of the human soldiers. Every time the aliens thought they had them cornered, the humans found a way to strike back. Harder and faster. A particularly fierce battle broke out near one of the alien warships, where a group of human soldiers, led by a seasoned commander, took down one of the alien ship's landing pads. The explosion sent shockwaves through the battlefield, and for a moment, the aliens hesitated. The sight of their own technology crumbling in the hands of humans made them realize how vulnerable they truly were. The humans weren't just surviving, they were taking control. Among the chaos, an alien general looked on in disbelief. His elite squad had been sent to deal with a small group of human rebels. But as they marched into the clearing, they were ambushed by a force of soldiers that seemed to appear out of nowhere. These humans, wearing basic armor, moved with a fluidity that made the aliens' trained soldiers look slow and clumsy in comparison. They fought with a desperation that made the aliens' advanced technology seem almost irrelevant. The alien general, watching his men fall one by one, began to realize something terrifying. The humans weren't fighting to win. They were fighting for something far deeper. These soldiers didn't just battle for victory, they fought because their world, their people, their homes depended on it. They fought because they had to, and that made them unstoppable. The alien general's mind raced, trying to process the situation. What kind of species could fight like this? It wasn't just about tactics, not just about technology, it was about survival. And the humans were surviving. As the human forces continued to push forward, the aliens started to panic. The concept of fear, something so foreign to their race, began to creep into their ranks. This wasn't a battle they could win easily. This wasn't a war they could just end with the press of a button. The human soldiers had an endurance, a spirit, that was beyond anything the warlords had ever faced. They fought with an intensity that was relentless, their will to protect their planet driving them further and further into the heart of the alien forces. In a desperate move, the aliens launched their most powerful weapon yet, a massive energy wave designed to decimate entire cities. It was the ultimate weapon, capable of wiping out everything in its path. They aimed it directly at the heart of the human army, confident it would crush them, but the humans didn't flinch. As the energy waves surged through the air, the human soldiers did something the aliens never expected. They adapted. They had been preparing for this moment. A group of human engineers, working under the command of the military leaders, had developed a countermeasure. They deployed a series of shields that absorbed the energy, redirecting it back at the aliens with terrifying speed. The shockwave sent alien soldiers flying, their advanced armor useless against the redirected power. The warlord overseeing the battle watched in shock, unable to comprehend how this was possible. They had everything: superior weapons, an unbeatable fleet, but the humans had something he couldn't explain. They had something far more dangerous than any weapon. Resolve that it wasn't just the battle that was being fought, it was a war of wills, and the humans were winning. The alien fleet was no longer composed of confident, fearsome invaders. They were desperate, unsure of how to fight an enemy that refused to fall. The once feared commanders found themselves scrambling to hold their forces together as the humans pressed forward, cutting through their defenses with precision and raw determination. The alien warlords had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. Fear was beginning to spread among them, the realization that this war would not be won in a few quick strikes, but with a long drawn-out struggle against an enemy that seemed impossible to defeat. The humans had something far more powerful than advanced weapons or endless technology. They had the will to survive, and that, as the aliens were starting to understand, was the most terrifying thing of all. As the dust began to settle, the aliens realized they were facing something far more dangerous than they had imagined. The humans were not just fighting back, they were winning. And the warlords could no longer ignore the terrifying truth. The human spirit could not be broken. The hidden strength of human armies, the battle had shifted in ways that the alien commanders could never have anticipated. The once imposing alien forces, equipped with advanced weaponry and technology far beyond anything the humans could dream of, now found themselves outmatched in a way that rattled them to their core. Every time they thought they had the upper hand, the humans adapted, countering each strategy with a chilling precision that left the invaders struggling to regain their footing. But the truth was becoming undeniable. The alien forces had underestimated the human spirit, the unbreakable core of determination that pulsed through every soldier's veins. As the dust settled after another intense clash, the aliens realized that it wasn't the weapons or the technology that made the human army terrifying. It was their unity, their undying resolve, and their ability to overcome any obstacle in front of them. The humans had a drive that transcended any individual soldier, any single battle. They fought not for glory, not for power, but for something far greater: their homes, their families, their planet. This was a fight for survival, and the humans would not give up. An alien general, once so confident in his forces, watched in horror as the humans took control of the battlefield. He had seen armies fall before. He had watched countless enemies crumble under his feet. But these humans, they were different. They didn't fight like mere soldiers. They fought like they were defending everything they held dear. The general tried to rally his forces, but his words fell on deaf ears. His soldiers were losing morale, retreating in the face of an enemy that simply refused to yield. The human army, despite their inferior numbers, was not only holding their ground but pushing forward relentlessly, taking back every inch of ground that had been lost. The alien leaders were beginning to question their decisions, their confidence shattered by the sheer willpower of the human soldiers. They called for a ceasefire, hoping to regroup, to rethink their strategy. But as they observed the humans, they saw something far more terrifying than they had imagined. The human army didn't need advanced technology to fight. It was their unity, their unwavering sense of purpose that made them unstoppable. The humans were driven by something deeper than any weapon, a desire to protect their own, to fight for their future, and to protect the Earth they called home. Meanwhile, the human commanders were watching their enemies in return. They could see the cracks forming in the alien ranks, the doubts seeping into their minds. The alien forces were beginning to fracture, unable to cope with the relentless assault from humans who had no intention of backing down. The human soldiers, though tired and battered, never lost their will to fight. They understood the stakes. This wasn't just a battle, it was the future of their species. They couldn't afford to lose. Back at the command center, a human officer named Captain John Mitchell watched the alien forces retreat. He didn't smile, didn't cheer. His eyes remained focused on the battlefield ahead, calculating their next move. Captain Mitchell knew the war was far from over, but he could see the tides of battle turning. It wasn't just their weapons or their technology that had given them an edge. It was their strategy, their willingness to make the hard choices, and their unity that had allowed them to hold off the invaders. The alien generals, once so sure of their victory, were now retreating, unable to comprehend the tenacity of the humans who stood before them. The captain turned to his team. "We've got them on the ropes," he said, his voice steady. "But don't get complacent. Keep pushing. They'll try to regroup, and when they do, we need to be ready." His words were simple, but they carried weight. The human forces had achieved something incredible. They had taken on an enemy far superior in strength and technology, and they had held their ground. That alone was a victory. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. As the day wore on, the alien forces began to pull back further, retreating into their ships, their weapons, and their ships now ineffective against the humans who had learned from every engagement. They had underestimated Earth, underestimated humanity. It was a mistake they would not make again. As the final blows were struck, the alien commanders began to realize that the humans were far from the primitive species they had once dismissed. They were warriors, true and tested, and they had something that no alien army could defeat, an unyielding spirit that would never break. For the first time in their long, ruthless careers, the alien warlords understood fear. Not because the humans were stronger, but because they had something that could not be defeated. The warlords had thought that their advanced technology and their battle-hardened troops would be enough to crush Earth. They had never accounted for the will of humanity. They had never accounted for the strength of human resolve, and now, as the alien forces retreated, they could only look back at the humans who had proven that the most terrifying thing about human armies was not their strength or their weapons, but their refusal to surrender. The warlords had learned the hard way that humanity's greatest weapon was not its technology, but the indomitable will to fight for what mattered most. The turning point. The battle had dragged on for days, but the momentum was shifting in favor of the humans. The alien forces, though powerful and technologically advanced, were beginning to feel the crushing weight of their miscalculations. The human soldiers, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, had shown no sign of surrender. Their resolve was unbreakable, and with each passing hour, the alien invaders began to realize they were fighting not against a mere species, but against a force that would stop at nothing to protect its home. It wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about something much deeper, something the aliens had never understood. It was about purpose. In the heart of the battlefield, as the alien lines began to fracture, a human lieutenant, Sarah Lawson, led a small unit to breach an alien defense line. They had no heavy weapons, no advanced technology, just their training, their instincts, and an overwhelming desire to succeed. They moved like a well-oiled machine, their actions synchronized, their every step deliberate. As they infiltrated the enemy's stronghold, they encountered a group of elite alien soldiers waiting to ambush them. But it was the humans who surprised the aliens. With quick thinking and teamwork, they used the environment to their advantage, setting traps, redirecting alien forces into dead ends, and slowly picking off the invaders one by one. Sarah's team didn't stop to celebrate their small victories. Instead, they pressed forward with an intensity that left the aliens reeling. Their actions were not just about winning a battle. They were about showing the invaders that they were not the ones in control. The alien soldiers, once so confident in their superiority, found themselves on the defensive, confused by the humans' unpredictability. As Sarah's team continued their relentless push, a message from command came through. The human forces had taken several key positions, and the alien reinforcements were on their way. But there was something different in the message. It wasn't just a call for more troops. It was a signal that they had turned the tide of the war. The human soldiers were not just holding ground anymore. They were pushing forward, reclaiming their world. The aliens had underestimated Earth's soldiers, and now they were facing the consequences of their arrogance. The human forces were beginning to adapt, faster than the alien invaders could comprehend. Where the aliens had relied on overwhelming firepower, the humans had countered with strategy and ingenuity. They had no interest in engaging in direct combat with a superior force. Instead, they used guerrilla tactics, intelligence, and sheer willpower to wear down the enemy. The alien commanders who had once believed they could crush the human resistance, in a matter of hours, now found themselves scrambling to keep their forces intact. The humans had shown them a side of warfare they hadn't prepared for, the kind of warfare that didn't rely on technology or superior weapons, but on the strength of mind and the power of unity. In the warlord's command ship, the head of the alien fleet, Commander Zayler, stared at the live feeds from the battlefield. He watched in disbelief as his forces fell back, retreating under the relentless pressure of the human counteroffensive. He had never seen anything like this. For centuries, he had commanded armies that swept across planets, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. But the humans, these so-called primitive creatures, were proving to be something else entirely. Zayler's mind raced as he watched his best troops falter. There was no way to explain it. How could they, with all their technology and training, be losing to a race that had been considered nothing more than a blip on the galactic radar? The humans weren't supposed to be capable of this. They weren't supposed to fight like this. And yet, every time his forces made a move, the humans countered with ruthless efficiency. It was as though they had predicted every action, every maneuver. It was a game of chess, and the humans were several moves ahead. In the chaos of the battlefield, Zayler's confidence began to crumble. His mind wandered back to the early days of the invasion, when the warlords had laughed at the idea of humanity ever posing a real threat. But now, as his forces struggled to maintain their position, he couldn't ignore the cold truth that was sinking in. The humans were not like any enemy he had faced before. They were relentless, adaptable, and most terrifying of all, unpredictable. The aliens had always relied on their technological superiority, but they hadn't counted on the human willpower. It wasn't just the humans' ability to fight that terrified him. It was their ability to endure, to keep pushing forward even when it seemed hopeless. The human forces, no matter how many times they were pushed back, kept coming. And every time they did, they brought something new to the table: tactics, strategies, weapons they hadn't seen before. It was as though the humans were constantly evolving, adapting faster than the aliens could anticipate. Commander Zayler turned to his second-in-command, his face grim. "Prepare the fleet to retreat," he said quietly. "We can no longer afford to underestimate them. We need to regroup and reassess. This war is far from over, but we need a new plan." His subordinate hesitated before speaking. "Are we abandoning the invasion, sir?" Zayler's eyes narrowed, his expression darkening. "No, we are not abandoning it. But we must acknowledge that this fight will not be as easy as we thought. The humans are capable of much more than we gave them credit for, and that will be the last mistake we make." As the alien fleet began to withdraw, leaving behind the shattered remnants of their invasion force, The humans stood victorious in their defense of Earth. They had endured, they had adapted, and they had turned the tide. But the battle was far from over. The alien forces would regroup, and a more brutal fight was on the horizon. However, one thing was now certain: the humans had proven they would never back down. The aliens had learned the hard way that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just its soldiers or its weapons. It was its unyielding will to survive and fight for what it believed in. And that, more than anything, was what made them terrifying. A final push. The human army stood on the precipice of something immense. The alien forces had retreated, but they had not been defeated. They were regrouping, rearming, and preparing for another strike. The humans, battered and worn, were aware that their fight wasn't over. The victory they had claimed so far was just a temporary reprieve, a small glimmer of hope in a war that had only just begun. The aliens had underestimated the human spirit once, but this time they would not be so easily fooled. Captain Mitchell surveyed the battlefield, his eyes scanning the horizon as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the charred remains of the alien war machines. Despite the successes, the humans were still at a disadvantage. The alien fleet had regrouped far beyond the range of their best weapons, and they were preparing for an attack like nothing the humans had seen before. The humans had no choice but to strike first. They couldn't afford to wait for the aliens to bring their full might to bear. They had to push forward, to make the final stand, to show the invaders that Earth would never surrender. "All units," Mitchell spoke into his communicator, his voice steady but filled with the weight of the moment. "We move out at dawn. We hit them hard. We hit them fast. And we don't stop until they're gone. This is it, for Earth." Across the human ranks, the soldiers responded with a unified roar. They had been through hell together, and they knew what was at stake. This was not just about a single battle. It was about saving their home, their future, and their loved ones. Every soldier felt the weight of this responsibility on their shoulders, but they also knew the alien forces were underestimating them yet again. The humans didn't just fight for survival. They fought for something much deeper. In the midst of the preparations, an alien scout ship passed unnoticed in the skies above, but its intelligence had already been shared with the commanders. The aliens were not going to wait for dawn. They had already begun their final offensive. It was a move that would either secure their victory or seal their doom. The alien forces mobilized, bringing all of their firepower to bear against the human defenses. The human response was swift. The moment the aliens made their move, the human army was ready. The first strike was swift, a series of expertly coordinated missile launches that tore into the alien fleet. The aliens had expected human weapons to be weak, unrefined, but what they found was an arsenal that had been honed to perfection. The humans had been learning from each encounter, adapting to every weapon, every tactic the aliens had thrown at them. Now it was the aliens' turn to be caught off guard. The ground shook as human-made tanks rolled forward, their guns blazing. The sky above was filled with the sound of jet fighters, the human air force cutting through the alien ranks with deadly precision. The humans moved with an intensity that was unmatched. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting to end this once and for all. The aliens had underestimated their tenacity, their adaptability, and now they were paying the price. Commander Zayler, now aware that this would not be an easy victory, watched helplessly as his fleet was torn apart. His ships, once invincible, were now being systematically destroyed by human forces. The shock of seeing his own fleet crumble under the relentless assault of humans was enough to shake his confidence. The alien warlords had counted on their superior weapons and technology, but the humans had found their weakness. The aliens had thought themselves unstoppable, but they had underestimated the power of human ingenuity. On the ground, the human soldiers surged forward, their resolve unshakable. They had faced everything the aliens had thrown at them, and they were still standing. Every time they were pushed back, they came back stronger. Every time the aliens thought they had the upper hand, the humans turned the tide. There was no breaking them. No matter how powerful the alien forces were, they could not break the human spirit. Sarah Lawson, leading a squad on the front lines, saw the alien fleet beginning to falter. It was the moment she had been waiting for. She had fought through the toughest battles, witnessed the strength and unity of the human soldiers, and now she could feel the shift. She raised her weapon, her voice cutting through the chaos of the battlefield as she called to her troops. "Push forward! This is our chance. We end this today." Her words were a rallying cry, and the soldiers around her responded with a fierce determination. They had been through hell together, and now they were about to deliver the final blow. The battle reached its fever pitch as the alien fleet, now scattered and disoriented, struggled to mount a defense. The human forces, pushing forward with everything they had, tore through their enemies like a tidal wave. It wasn't just the soldiers on the ground or in the skies. It was every human, everywhere, fighting for their future. Every home, every family, every piece of earth was now on the line, and the humans would stop at nothing to protect it. Zaylor, as he watched the humans' unrelenting assault, finally understood the truth. It wasn't their technology, their firepower, or their strategies that made the humans terrifying. It was their will. The human army had become something unstoppable, something he couldn't defeat. They had become a force of nature, driven by an unshakable belief in their mission, their home, and their people. And there was no force in the universe that could break that. As the last of the alien ships were destroyed, the human forces stood victorious. Earth was theirs, and the alien invasion had been crushed. The price had been high, but humanity had endured. The aliens had learned the hardest lesson they would ever face: never underestimate the human spirit. The final push had been made, and the invaders, once so confident in their superiority, had been sent packing. Humanity had proven that no matter the odds, no matter the challenge, they would always rise to protect what was theirs. And the galaxy would never forget it.